Let's talk to Will Chamberlain about it, senior counsel at the Article 3 Project on X at Will Chamberlain. Will, welcome back. It's good to have you on the show with us. How was your Tuesday? Will?
Oh, it's lovely. I had a great Tuesday.
Yeah.
Got to watch Thomas Massie lose. That made me very happy. And in general, it was a good day. I was actually up testifying at the Senate, so I had a fun day. A lot of interesting things happening.
A packed day for Will Chamberlain on Tuesday. Was Thomas Massie, did he start okay when he got into Congress and he's wearing the deck clock and stuff like that? To me, it seemed like the principle of the matter was good, but he kind of lost the principle.
Yeah, I mean, he came in with the Tea Party, and that was sort of the Tea Party thing, was excessive spending. And I think that you can actually trace, I think the Trump coming into power really put the Tea Party types who really came in hard on just all spending is bad. It put them in a real bind. And a lot of them have left Congress now. I mean, Chip Roy is another good example. He's not going to be in Congress much longer. But Massie changed. And it's not just the Tea Party stuff. Like even 2-3 years ago, that was what he was focused on. But since his wife died, he's become a very strange and kind of petty person. And his conduct over the last 2 years he's kind of been making a spectacle of disloyalty to Trump. He's the only person who didn't vote for the big, beautiful bill. He's worked with Ro Khanna on this Epstein stuff and made a complete fool of himself. Like he went on the House floor to reveal names of people implicated in the files. And the 4 of them were just people who had been in a police lineup with Epstein. Totally unconnected otherwise. And in general, and he's just insulting and patronizing. And then, he makes a whole thing about being principled, the principles guy in the race. And he's the only guy with principle. And he's running an incredibly dishonest campaign where he's pretending that he and Trump are on good terms. The last thing his campaign did was blast out a mass text with a 2022 era endorsement of Massie, without saying that in this current race, he was not endorsed. So, good riddance, honestly. I think he deserves to be in the private sector. And who knows, maybe I'll end up debating him on Piers Morgan in about 6 months.
Yeah, if we're all so lucky. Well, Chamberlain speaking with us right now with the Article 3 Project. There's something about, Donald Trump does demand loyalty. It's maybe his favorite thing. And that's not new. And he's not discriminate about it. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be in the club for him to be loyal. He'll take anybody. He was on the stage with Mark Cuban earlier this week because Mark Cuban, he could find a cross section in a Kamala Harris Venn diagram that made sense for the American people. I find that to be incredibly refreshing. People overlook that about Trump all the time. And it's always bizarre to me with people like Thomas Massie, with MTG. I mean, honestly, like Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, their voting record, they did vote for what the Republicans wanted quite often. There was a lot in the center of that Venn diagram, but yet there's something about Donald Trump that breaks these people on the inside.
Yeah. Who knows exactly what that is. And that's a good example of what happened with Massie. And, and it gets to a point where they start making a spectacle out of their own disloyalty, and that's when they need to go. Donald Trump's actually pretty tolerant. People can vote the wrong way on certain bills, and he's not, and he'll let also, if you kiss and make up, he will make up with you as a general principle. But, Massie just, again, the guy, there's certain things you can't take back, and that he also never apologized for. When you say the president of the United States is protecting pedophiles, as are all your colleagues in Congress, what do you think's going to happen? You think you're going to be able to run under the party's name and win? No, the party is a serious force. And they don't like it. And there's immediately they're playing the blame game. They know they can't blame Trump because Trump is so popular. So they're blaming Israel, and they're blaming pro-Israel donors for their loss, which is stupid because Thomas Massie had all the money he needed. He wasn't short on funds. He had $10 million plus in a congressional race. Everybody in that district heard the messages from both Gal Ryan and Massie. So, they made a decision about what they found persuasive. And the simplest argument was, this guy's an asshole. He's thwarting our agenda and he needs to go.
So we're speaking with Will Chamberlain. He is a senior counsel at the Article 3 Project on X at Will Chamberlain. I guess at this point, I feel like it might be chicken or the egg, because the concept of America First, which is probably the more palatable way to say MAGA at this point. I think, I've got this question on X that's not going to get answered by Hakeem Jeffries, but he keeps talking about MAGA extremists. And I would just like for Hakeem Jeffries to define the difference between someone who's MAGA and someone who's a MAGA extremist. I wonder if he thinks there's a difference there. Not that it would matter to him. But Donald Trump comes on the scene and sweeps the country's attention out of nowhere. And I wonder, was he saying what the people were saying, and that's why they associated with him? Because it's got the longevity of a political movement that will be historically studied forever in American history. And we see Tuesday that Trump contingent is still as powerful as it ever has been, at least intra-party. We'll see how that plays out in the midterms. Is Trump representing the people, or are the people just supporting Trump?
I think Trump is representing the people. Like, ultimately, they voted for him 2-1. They're not tired of him. I just had this debate on Piers Morgan with like Buckley Carlson and whoever, and they're all trying to say that Trump betrayed his base, that he betrayed his voters, and it's like, well, the people of Kentucky didn't agree with that. If they did, they would have kept their 7-term incumbent congressman who was fighting with him. They didn't. They threw him out. I think that there's a common trend where people who are minority members of the coalition kind of make a claim that what their beliefs are is America first, right? They sort of decide to say, like, Thomas Massie's Tea Party, libertarianism, hyper small government, that's the MAGA platform. And it's like, no, it's not. It never was. You're pretending. So that way you can say that everything you would do is in support of Trump and aligned with Trump. But the moment push comes to shove and there's like a conflict between your claims about what Trump's agenda is and what Trump's agenda actually is, you're in trouble, and you put your foot down. So, and that's led to Thomas Massie's ouster.
I kind of feel as though that the Thomas Massie primary defeat is maybe, I'm trying to check my thoughts here before I say them out loud. I think it might be the most high profile, like, not the phrase that's on X now is podcastistan, which is really quite a term. That's such a, you and I know about that world. A lot of my listeners don't have time for that. They're trying to get their kids to ball games and to get to PTA meetings and all of that. But the Israel, pro-Israel, anti-Israel thing, it's a very potent, powerful, small group of people that really got shellacked on Tuesday as well. What kind of factor does this have in the future?
Not as big as they want it to. The problem is that they've globalized their audience, and so they now are speaking to a bunch of people who don't vote in American elections. That's the way to think about the problem, right? They're building their audience not on, for example, local talk radio like you are, where you are speaking to voters who people who vote in American elections. They are speaking to a global audience of third worlders, so very often, or just English speakers around the world. And while, Islam, for example, is not a big part of the United States in terms of, practicing people practicing the religion, it's just not, like, less than 1% of the country is Muslim. Something like there's 1.5 billion Muslims in the world, and they really don't like Israel, and they really, don't like American hegemony, and they want America to be weaker and to stop supporting Israel. And so if you are, trying to get numbers up on YouTube, there's a big audience for that sort of content, even if there's not a big audience for that kind of content in Republican primary elections.
Gosh, that's so sad, Will. Like, to think that this is about YouTube views and influence on the internet, when a lot of these people who have made this their entire platform now, like, that is what you're getting from them. And if they're talking about something else, it will inevitably come back to that. There are some big names. I didn't miss a Tucker Carlson show when he was on Fox. I DVR'd it. It was, if I only had time to watch one show after an evening full of parenting, I'm watching Tucker because I can think for myself, but I want to know Tucker's perspective on it. And it just seems so, to me, it's so sad that that is gone. It's gone.
He's just imploded. Like, his show's utterly useless now. He's just, who knows if it was his staffers who were actually keeping him on the straight and narrow when he was working there. Who knows what's changed? But
is he doing this for YouTube views? Is it really that simple?
No. I think that, well, it's not that you do it intentionally for the views, but rather than that the views kind of anchor you and pull you towards the sort of content that gets views.
It's like an affirmation.
Right? Like, everybody wants to see their numbers go up if they're in this game. And so I think it's not intentional, but it's sort of a subtle pull that eventually works its way up over time.
Yeah. I'm trying so hard.
That's my best explanation.
I'm working so hard, as a local radio show host to, like, rip myself out of these little cesspools that exist that it's very simple because it's like you jump in there and you're like, what is going on here? It becomes very compelling and interesting to look, and kind of like you can't turn away from the car wreck. But when I hear President Trump from the Oval Office today talking about doing things to lower grocery prices, that's what the people listening to us right now in St. Louis and Illinois and Missouri, that's what they care about. They care about non-nuclear Iran and also gas prices coming down. And the Thomas Massie thing, like, it's, to me, it's like you gave up so much for so little. And now the people of Kentucky said, we're done.
You know how hard it is to lose a race as a 7-term incumbent? It's so hard as in a safe district. Like, he could have held that seat for 40 years if he was just a little more pragmatic, a little bit, a little bit more reasonable. But no, I mean, and then, to go out and blame. I mean, I was actually like, I was talking with a member of Congress who is in a much more precarious district. And one of the things he said to me, which I thought was really interesting, was like, I look at some of these people. He said he looks at these people in safe seats, and some of whom are like futzing around and do something that might lose them their seat. And it's like, what is wrong with you? Do you have any idea what I have to do to hold my seat? Like, it's a full-time job of managing all the constituencies and keeping everybody in the tent, because I only won my last race by like 2,000 votes.
Yeah.
So, and he looks at somebody like Massie, he's like, you're a clown. You could have held that seat for 40 years without breaking a sweat and continue to do whatever you were doing. But no, you had to, you had to pull a stunt, and now you're not going to be in Congress anymore.
And still have been principled and anchored and focused, and you'd be in the room to influence what happens. Your voice and your principle would precede you into the room.
You're one in a body of 435. So there's a limit to what you're going to be able to do within the confines of being in a party and in a House of Representatives. You could probably have made some sort of request that like one particular provision needed to go because it was particularly offensive to you. But knowing that this was the president's agenda, that the party was behind it, that there were a couple hundred other Republicans who were supporting it, you needed to find your way to yes and figure out what you could get out of this bill that made sense and that you could go back to your district and sell. But that's not what he's doing. He's just, he just wanted to obstruct and just didn't want to be part of the team. It's like, okay, well, politics is a team sport. So, and I guess what? He wasn't running as an independent. He wasn't running. He wants the protection of the Republican Party and the support of the Republican Party without any of the obligations to the Republican Party and Republican voters.
Last question.
Not going to fly.
Does he run for president?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think he's too much of an egomaniac not to, and he'll get like 1 or 2%.
Well, I feel good about that. Take that home to Kentucky. Will Chamberlain, thank you. We love speaking with you. Good to have you back.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye. Will Chamberlain is a senior counsel at the Article 3 Project. On X at Will Chamberlain, a must follow. I read everything he writes. When I'm scrolling and I see it, I read it. You can go to article3project.org